This is Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, brought to you by the Iowa Soybean Association, your daily recap of the information that affects Iowa's farmers, producers, and consumers, right here in the heart of the heartland. With reports from our award-winning broadcast team of Dustin Hoffman, Riley Smith, and Mark Magnuson. Now, from the IARN studios in Des Moines, here's Dustin Hoffman.
Well, good day, everyone, and welcome to Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Dustin Huffman. Today is Wednesday, November the 30th, 2022. We're so glad you could join us. Hard to believe we've only got 1 month left of 2022. Coming up in today's program, I talk with Iowa Senator Joni Ernst about the makeup in Congress, the future of the Farm Bill, and also the impending rail strike. Now, this was, of course, recorded before we heard from President Biden encouraging Congress to act on the rail strike situation. She was talking about the fact that she hoped it wouldn't come to that, but we talked about other aspects of it as well. We'll also have a look at your ag weather outlook, but right now, let's run down those markets. It's time now for the Ag Matters PM Closing Market Summary, your source for market analysis and settlement prices from the day's trade in Chicago, courtesy of the folks at agmarket.net. Well, we're at the end of another trading day, and for that, we're talking with Tyler Schau of agmarket.net. Tyler, what did we see in those markets today?
A little bit of everything. Corn really struggled today. The rest of the grains had a pretty strong performance. This morning, beans were up very strong. March beans got up as high as $14.84 before selling off shortly after the morning open. Ended up closing up around a dime on your January and your March soybeans. So that was positive development. Wheat finally had a positive day after just kind of bleeding out for the last couple of weeks. Just wheat's really struggled. Kind of saw a little bit of what might be construed as a turnaround. But corn, everyone's been talking here the last few days. Beans have been strong, and corn has just kind of been flat, and been a lot of talk that wheat was holding corn down. So today a little bit different. We did get the EIA report on ethanol production, and wouldn't say it was super bearish by any stretch of the imagination, but it definitely didn't help prices out. EIA reported about 1.108 million barrels of production of ethanol were produced per day during last week, which was down about 23,000 barrels per day the prior week. Now, last week was Thanksgiving, so that might have had something to do with that. But either way, production was down, stocks were up, and so that just probably weighed on the corn market a little bit today.
So what was the story with soybeans? I mean, they shot up pretty good in the beginning, like you said, then they kind of wavered, and then they went right back up again a little bit. I mean, what was kind of making that topsy-turvy reaction?
Run into quite a bit of resistance up there. Actually, where we closed today at 1475 was a high that we put in early November 7th. And a lot of times, when we reach those resistance areas, the market will kind of poke around. It'll break through them. Probably have a lot of buy stops working up there. Like, hey, if we get above this high set from, a point in the past, we'll buy some more. Probably filled a lot of those buy stops, and then just ran out of momentum, and then kind of sold off and went back down. And at one point, we were virtually unchanged on soybeans. That was just about an hour into the trading day, and then kind of realized that it had some legs, rallied back, and closed up here at these levels where we're at.
So switching over to the livestock side of things, Tyler, what do we see in those cattle and hog markets today?
Really strong day on the livestock side. Feeder cattle led the way. The big driver, in my opinion, that feeder calf index is one of those that I'll look at quite a bit when trying to evaluate where the feeder calf market is. Saw about a $5.22 per hundredweight gain on the feeder calf index that got reported last Friday to the one that was reported at the close yesterday. Now, remember, the feeder calf index is usually lags by a day or two. So when it's reported, it's lagging a day. But you see a $5 jump in 2 days of reported data, and that's going to say something to the market. And what I always try to remind people is that your nearby feeder cattle contract has got to settle against that index. So they're going to come together, especially as we move closer and closer to the end of January. And so I think you just saw a reaction to that kind of that that number came out today and kind of pulled people's attention to it, put a little bullish sentiment back into the feeder calf market. Fat cattle, same story. Cash prices remain strong. And hogs, there really wasn't any news as to why hogs should be up $1.80 in the December or $1.20 in the February contract. Outside of it, likely sold off a little too aggressively on Monday when we saw that big drop off.
All right. Well, Tyler, if folks want to talk with agmarket.net to get some ideas of some strategies they can employ, how do they get in touch with you all?
Check us out, the website, agmarket.net. You can sign up for our 30-day trial of our Ag Intel. We send out a ton of information. Check out our contact page, look up any specific broker. And if you want to reach out to me direct, the number 701-987-6009.
All right, Tyler. Well, we thank you so much for the insight, and we'll talk to you again real soon.
You bet. Take care.
That again was Tyler Schau of agmarket.net. Let's run down those closing numbers, courtesy of the folks at Bar Chart. March corn was 2.5 lower at 667 even. May was down 2 3/4 at 665 1/4. January beans up a dime at 1469 1/2. March up 9.5 at 1475 1/2. Soy meal was up $10.20 at 417.80. Soy oil down $1.10 at 71.88. Chicago wheat up 14 at 795 1/2. Minneapolis up 8.5 at 943 even. Kansas wheat up 12 3/4 at 899 3/4. March oats up 2 3/4 at 1385 3/4. December live cattle 40 cents higher at 153.07. January feeders 247 higher, 180.47. Lean hogs up $1.82 at 82.90. Pork cutouts up 92 cents at 90.87. Class 3 milk for December down 3 cents at 19.82. And that again was your market recap. We're going to take a short break and hear from our sponsor, the Iowa Soybean Association and the Soy Checkoff. And when we come back, I talk with Iowa Senator Joni Ernst about the Farm Bill, the rail strike, and more. This is Ag Matters PM.
Iowa Soybean Association is driven to deliver for Iowa's 40,000 soybean farmers. We're proud to provide objective agronomic research, a helping hand with soil and water stewardship, and timely industry news powered by the Soybean Checkoff. Learn more at iasoybeans.com.
Welcome back to AMPM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Dustin Huffman. Well, next Friday, December the 9th, is the deadline for a strike to happen with railroad workers across the country. And now there is help from Congress coming in the form of them ruling on enforcing a contract on the rail workers to at least keep the industry rolling and avoid a $2 billion hit to the economy. We talked about that and the Farm Bill with Iowa Senator Joni Ernst just right before Thanksgiving. Well, we're talking right now with Iowa Senator Joni Ernst. And Senator, we're right here before Thanksgiving. And, since the elections, you've been plenty busy. Tell us a little bit about what's been going on here for you.
Well, we have actually started working on the Farm Bill. So it's been very good to start those initial meetings and understand a path forward. And we know how important this is to our Iowa farmers and ranchers. So we'll be very diligent. We are blessed, of course, to have Senator Chuck Grassley back with us in this next Congress. And he also serves on our Agricultural Committee. So we'll be working very hard to make sure our Iowa interests are represented on that committee as we're working on this reauthorization. So exciting times there. One of the other things that we are paying very close attention to is the railroad strike, the potential for a strike coming up in December. And we continue to encourage the administration, of course, to pressure the workers and the unions to come together with the railroads and find a solution that averts a shutdown. So we don't want to see that strike happen, and we're hopeful that all parties involved will come together in the end.
Let's go back to the Farm Bill, first of all, Senator. Obviously, we know that there are going to be several factors that are always negotiated heavily, let's just put it that way, for the milder term. But, one of those being crop insurance and the safety net. Now, in 2018, it was a lot different. The prices were a lot lower. Now, some people outside of agriculture might see that, especially in the full Senate possibly, where they see that, hey, the markets are higher. Why do they need all this safety net and not understand the input costs and the situation that this is an insurance policy that farmers buy into as well?
Right. And you hit the nail on the head. A lot of folks see those higher commodity prices and they think that farmers are getting rich. And we know that that's not true with the input costs. And so we're gathering up all of that information from our farmers and and from the co-ops and so forth, and just helping paint a picture for the other members on our agricultural committee. Many of them do understand what is going on in our farm communities right now, but it's a lot of those other members that maybe don't serve on the agriculture committee. And so we have to do a very good job at painting a picture on why we really need this reauthorization, why it's so important that we provide those safety nets for our farmers. Because as I've said many times over, I think everybody here in the United States really likes to eat. So it is important that we are supporting our ag community and making sure they're able to produce, feed, fuel, and clothe the world.
Another part of that farm bill that usually brings contention, I know, is with the SNAP programs and that part of the farm bill and those titles in there. I mean, what can be done to make sure the people who are needing the programs are getting what they need and getting an adequate supply of food they need, especially when we're combating inflation and things like that this time of year?
Yeah, this is also a very tough one because we have seen inflation just rip through our communities and all across the United States. I just did a visit with the Open Door Mission, and they were talking about how difficult it is this year. They have increasing numbers of families that are coming to get donated food, and yet their donations are down as well because of the food costs. A lot of families just can't donate at the levels that they have in past years. And so a lot of families are really struggling with this. And they did talk about the USDA supports that they get to help some of their food programs. And we see this in our schools as well. I met a couple of months ago with a group of what we call our school lunch ladies, the folks that have to do the planning for the meals and the rules and regulations that they are subjected to when they are working through the menus for our school children. So it's difficult all the way around. Food costs have gone up. But again, going back to the root cause, we've got a lot of input costs that have gone up for our farmers, ranchers, and growers. And so this is out of control. And yet we have an administration that refuses to acknowledge the additional energy costs, the cost of fertilizer. And there are things that we can do about this, but the administration just doesn't want to budge on it. So it's a difficult time, but you're right. And that SNAP and a lot of these food programs will be extremely important to reauthorize, not just for this upcoming year, but for years beyond if we can't get inflation under control.
Now, you also brought up the railroad strike situation, and here at our studios, we're right across this road from the ADM rail yard here, so definitely see a lot of ag commodities moving through across the street. And when we're talking about this, it's not only what happens if they do shut down, it's the days ahead of time. We were in the 11th hour, just a couple months ago before the deal was brokered, and they were already starting to move crews closer to home, getting goods off the rails so they didn't sit there before the strike. And so you're talking about disruption that starts days in advance if we don't get something done.
Yeah, absolutely. And yes, you're right. That 11th hour, commuter trains were stopping. Of course, those trains that haul our commodities. We see a lot of coal trains coming through my area here in Southwest Iowa. You name it, a lot of goods are traveling by rail. And it is vital to the U.S. economy. There is an estimate that if the railroads go on strike, it would be at a cost of $2 billion every single day to the U.S. economy. We don't want to see that happen. But what I want to see is that these labor unions representing the railroad workers and that the railroads can come together. We need the administration to really get involved and bring these groups together to work out an agreement. We want to make sure that those railroad workers, many of them are working a lot of overtime away from home, that they are getting the time off that they need. And there is a worker shortage, which is impacting all the way around. And so I know this is a very difficult problem to have, but we hope that they can come up with those solutions and that Congress does not have to intervene at the 11th hour. So I'm just encouraging all of those groups to come together, do the right thing, make sure that you're treating your workers fairly, and making sure that we can continue to see our goods move by rail.
And talking about moving goods as well, obviously we're really concerned about Mexico's ban on GMO corn, and I know you joined with Senator Grassley to pen a letter to U.S. Trade Representative Catherine Tai. Tell us a little about that letter and what kind of information you put forward to her.
Yes, we did write a letter to Catherine Tai. She is the U.S. trade rep, and we outlined the fact that Mexico plans to ban any GMO corn. And this is a very clear to us, a very clear violation of the United States, Mexico, Canada agreement. So we laid that information out to the trade representative, Catherine Tai, and we hope that we can get the administration once again to intervene in a situation that we feel is very, very clear cut. This would impact of course, our corn growers, not just in Iowa, but across the United States as well, and a definite impact to our economy and a loss of about $2.5 billion in that first year. And in the second year, the cost to the United States and our corn growers would be close to $5.5 billion. So we need intervention by our trade rep. We've outlined that again in a letter that was penned by Senator Grassley and me. And we hope that she will step forward, get the force of the president behind her, and force Mexico to live up to the USMCA.
Now, I was just going to ask you on follow-up, in what way will this be a violation of that trade agreement?
Well, they have agreed to accept corn, and GMO or not, it is their obligation through this trade agreement to purchase U.S. corn. So if they are not purchasing that U.S. corn because of GMOs, then they are in violation to that agreement. So we really, really depend, especially as Iowans, we depend on those Mexico corn purchases. They are one of our largest trade partners here in the state of Iowa, and we really expect them to live up to those obligations. They entered into this trade agreement. They need to live up to it.
Now, there are provisions for, some kind of grievance filing, and I know then Canada would kind of be involved in that, especially if there's a grievance between Mexico and the United States. How would that go forward, and how does that get activated if we decide that's the route we want to go?
Well, again, that would need to be through the trade rep and making sure that she is engaging. And it's exactly why we wrote the letter to Catherine Tai, to raise her awareness on this issue. She can take the information, work with our staffs, and then proceed as necessary. We hope it doesn't come to that. We hope that Mexico backs off before we have to take any very stiff measures against Mexico. So again, we're hoping for the best outcome, but we really need the trade rep to step up and make sure that she is doing her job as well and representing our administration and our interests in the USMCA.
Now, to wrap up here, Senator, obviously we talked about input costs being high. We talked fertilizer being one of those many inputs, but obviously as farm bill negotiations are going on and we look ahead to next year, a lot of farmers, while they have locked in, they aren't locking in prices they would like to see, and they understand that prices do go up. When you're talking 300% increases, and you've talked with different companies before about this, but what kind of things do farmers need to know on this occurring debate over the subject that's going into 2023 and into this farm bill?
Well, I would just warn our farmers, of course, that we continue to see high prices and we will probably continue to see those. We've really pushed back on the administration, trying to find various avenues where we can lower the input costs to our farmers. However, we haven't had a bite from the administration. We know that energy costs really drive inflation and a lot of these prices across the board. It doesn't matter what it is, but yet we have an administration that refuses to engage really in the energy space. We need to see the unleashing of American energy. We could lower some of those costs, whether it's fertilizer production, drying of grains as we're bringing in harvest, you name it. Energy is behind so much of the costs that we're experiencing right now as American farmers, growers, ranchers, and consumers. So again, we continue to encourage the administration to really unleash American energy it would alleviate some of the concerns surrounding inflation. But we don't see that lessening at any point soon.
Well, Senator Ernst, thank you so much for taking the time to visit with us today. We appreciate it as always.
Thanks so much.
That again was Iowa Senator Joni Ernst. Let's go ahead and run down the weather forecasts. Well, the sun is shining bright here in Des Moines, but don't let that fool you. It was definitely cold out this morning when we got going, and it looks to be even colder tonight. We could see wind chills below zero across much of the state. How cold will it get and how fast will it warm up? Well, let's look at the National Weather Service forecast for the next 24 hours. Well, today we saw mostly sunny skies and it was windy. Now, we did see some blowing and drifting snow in some parts of northern Iowa where they received more precipitation earlier this week. We saw highs today in the low 20s to the low 30s. Now, tonight it's going to get clear and cold and it will still be breezy. Wind chills could come in well below zero tonight across the state as we look for lows only in the mid-single digits to the upper teens. Now tomorrow it's going to warm up just a little bit. We'll see sunny skies. Blowing snow will still continue in some parts of the north, but the temps again will be warmer as we look for highs in the upper 30s to the upper 40s. Looking at the affiliate weather map for tomorrow, Cherokee looks to see sunny skies and blowing snow and a high of 37. Shenandoah sunny and 49. Des Moines will be sunny and 44. Waterloo sunny and 38. Albia sunny and 43. And Clinton will be sunny and 39 degrees. For more detailed forecasts in your area, tune to your local Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network affiliate. And that's been our Ag Weather Outlook. And just like that, we're at the end of today's show. You can find all our content online at iowaagnet.com. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok, and on our YouTube channel. And while you're there, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you're notified each time we put out a new video product. You can also sign up for our free Twice Daily Market podcast through Google, Amazon, Apple, Spotify, and Podbean. From the IARN studios in Des Moines, I'm Dustin Huffman. For Riley Smith and Mark Magnuson, we thank you for watching. This has been Ag Matters PM.